All right, ninth graders, so for our color unit, we are now moving on to performance task. This is your first one out of 3 performance tasks total. So for this assignment, you will get to choose a landscape of your choice. So everybody should have a completely different diagram after we're done. You're going to pick a landscape from Google. It can be anything that you're drawn to. If you look on the performance task step 1, if you were given permission to be at this spot, you'll notice on your instruction sheet that I've shared why I chose this landscape. That's something I am pretty interested to know as to why you choose that landscape. Maybe you're drawn to the color, maybe you've been to that place before. Maybe it's a photo that you have taken. This isn't a chance though for you to scroll through Facebook to find a photo, but instead I want you to pick a photo that you're interested at looking at for a long period of time. Once you have that photo, you need to get a paper from me, and you are going to make a giant 8x10 box, and you are going to divide that into 80 squares. So I did 10 squares going across. Each of these are 1 inch in width. And then I did 8 squares going down. These are also 1 inch in width. So now I've got 1 by 1 inch boxes. Now before you start working on yours, I'm going to allow you to look at my landscape, and on my table you can go ahead and mix a color that you see in this landscape. Everybody has different eyes. We all see different colors. We all see different tints and shades of colors. And so what I see in this area may not be the exact same thing as another person sees. But if I try to create this yellow-green that's used in the tops of the trees, and I paint it up here, that means you cannot paint that color again in your table or on my table. So essentially you want to be able to know how to mix 80 different colors inspired by this piece here. Now if I chose a piece like just water. Water is blue, light blue, sometimes it has color in it, but if you choose something too simple, you're not going to be able to find 80 colors. So when you go to find your image, make sure that you find an image that shows so many ranges of colors and values. You want to be able to see your foreground, your middle ground, background, and even beyond that, because that helps you understand those tints and shades that you just did on your color wheel. We'll also see this area here is the same type of value and intensity that I used on my intensity chart or my intensity scale. So you might have an opportunity to find where your Pantone color is, if you do have it, and you'll get to see how intensity contributes to the overall image using that color. So I'm going to get started here. The first thing I need to do is make that table. Once I have 80 squares, I am going to make sure that all my lines for this are extremely clean and straight. And just like I shared with you all in class, I am looking for the best craftsmanship that you have. So when you paint, let's say this area here, you should not have paint out here. You shouldn't have paint over here. So if you need to tape around your whole 8x10 rectangle, you can. But I really want you to start working on your own with keeping the paint inside of these boxed lines. For your final performance task, you will not be able to use tape. And so it's really important that you start training your hand and your eyes to work carefully, slowly, and to see very small detail, okay? When I go to grade you, I'm looking for those really small details to be taken care of. So even if you paint this whole thing, but you've got some small white spaces in there, that shows me that you work so quick that you didn't take the time to fill in this entire box neatly, okay? Then you go back to your landscape, and I'm going to study this entire landscape. I'm really drawn to this color right here, okay? Now I'm looking at a very small part of my landscape in comparison to this whole thing. I'm looking at that. So I've got my primary colors plus white. You might even have black, but for what I'm showing you, I'm just going to use white. And I'm going to mix up my colors to match this color here as best as possible. So when I look at that color, I see more of an orange. So I'm going to mix up an orange by mixing the red and the yellow. But it's lighter. Now to make lighter colors, you might have to think back to your color wheel, but to make lighter colors, you're going to add a tint, or create a tint, by adding white. So I've got my, there it is, my orange color made, and it looks like it's really bright in comparison to something like that. So now I'm going to add some white and mix it in. And I'm starting to get a little bit closer. Seeing like this peachy salmon color. This might actually have a little bit more orange than what I've made. So I'm going to mix up some orange and add it. And when I think that I have the right color, I'm going to pick any square on this chart, and I'm going to fill that square in really neat. Now one challenge, if you're up for it, is let's say you start with this color up here, you do that color up in your top box. And then you analyze this spot of your landscape, and that goes in your second box. And then you get down to like this yellow-green, then you put it over here in an area where the yellow-green might show up. You don't have to do that. You could just arrange your entire 80 color challenge into just a diagram or a list of the colors that you see. So I'm just going to pick a random square, and I'm going to carefully paint. I am painting in the same direction using the side of my brush like a pencil. Notice how I'm not swiveling my brush over in the paint on top of that big glob of paint. I'm working extremely hard to make sure that I stay within these lines. If you tape the edges of your 8x10 box, that will help. But if you choose to go in the route of doing this on your own without the tape to protect you, you are only setting yourself up to succeed and have better craftsmanship as we progress through these projects. Every project, I'm looking for more and more better craftsmanship. So I left the little corner here without paint. That's something that I'm going to notice right away, because our eyes are attracted to small details like that when they stand out. And so I'm going to rotate my paper as often as needed to fill those spaces. So for this project, you may find yourself needing a little bit more room than what you usually give when you sit at the table with all of your friends. Okay, I'm gonna rotate all this back. Now looking at this area that I chose and this, it seems a little bit too dark what I've just put down. So before I make any changes, I'm going to look over this area of the piece again, squint my eyes, and I'm going to see if there's any area within this that matches this color. I don't see any area, and so I'm gonna go ahead and lighten what I made. So on my plate, I added more white to what I had mixed instead of adding white on top of the square. If you need a scrap paper to test it out, you can definitely do that. I'm just gonna jump right in and experiment. And that is much closer. So I'm just going to carefully go back into what I have put down, keeping in mind that we are aiming for the best craftsmanship we can give. Then I'm just going to kind of smooth this out so that way my entire box is the same tint. Okay, so now what I've created is something that is much closer to this. In order to get this kind of color, I had to mix red and yellow to create orange, and then I had to add a lot of white to it, and then even still, I had to make revisions after I thought I was done. I found out that my color was wrong and too dark, and that dark color wasn't used anywhere in my piece. So now that I have one done, I'm going to find another color in here that I see. This area, it may not show on the video, but this is like a deep blue-green color. So since I'm changing colors now, I'm going to clean my brush really, really well so that salmon pink color doesn't affect my blue-green. I'm going to make sure that I dry it just by swishing it back and forth. And then using my primary colors only, I'm going to mix up a blue-green. So blue-green is a lot of blue mixed with some yellow. You might want to put your color wheel next to you while you do this to see how you mix some of these colors that you're seeing. This looks about right to me. Again, the camera shows it just a little bit different. I'm going to add more blue just to be on the safe side. Okay. So now I've got my color. I can choose to put it anywhere on this grid. I'm gonna put it, I'll just do it right up here. Leaves more space for you all to practice by looking at mine before you start on yours. So again, I'm working really carefully around the edges. All of my edges are important. Okay, so I've got my second color of 80 down. So it was really easy for me to just pinpoint any spot. Now if you've ever played the game where you spun the globe with your eyes closed and then bam, you stick your finger down, and whatever your finger is sitting on is your next vacation. If only it worked that way for this. But in the same way, you could just close your eyes for a second, throw your finger down, and wherever you land, that color is what you are going to make. So if you're having a hard time trying to figure out where to start with this, simply close your eyes and just give that a try. Okay? Your 80 colors should be extremely easy to mix. But if I see just plain red or any of your plain hues, I'm going to be pretty disappointed, because when I look at this, there's no spot where it's just simple yellow or simple blue. These are all mixtures, which is why this is the challenge. So in order to mix something, you need to be mixing two colors. You should not be putting one single color down here. So keep that in mind as you're looking for a landscape to do this project. I would like you to upload a picture of your landscape to this assignment so I can see when I go to look at your tables, once it's done, what you used as a reference. And then one final thing, I'll move this up real quick. Your Excel opportunity is the Impressionistic Color Study. You are going to recreate this landscape that you chose in a 5x7 box on your paper, okay? This is something where you're going to want to take those edges, because Impressionism is all about loose brush strokes, and it's playing with color to create texture and to create form. To get a better understanding, please check out this website or see me for help. You got this.